And it did it. It did it. Welcome back to Steadfast Diecast. We are on day 3 of our recalibration of the top 48. We are going to recalibrate the other side of the case, which will start with that car right there. That is the Silverado EV, and it will take on the number 24 spot, which is on the other side of the case, and that's the Mustang Funny Car. And so we're going to do 12 cars today. And so we're going to start with the Silverado and go all the way down to the McLaren. Let's get started. All right, we've got the Mustang Funny Car with the Moon Eyes livery in one lane, and then we've got the Chevy EV Silverado on the other. Remember, we are doing recalibration because of that right there. We have elevated the track by 1.5 inches, and it has made all the difference. And so I've got some good stuff in store for the track after we get done with recalibration, but we got to get done. So day 3, here we go. Let's see if the Chevy EV Silverado can move up. Here we go. 1504 to 1527. Let's swap lanes. All right, lanes are swapped. 1504, time to beat. Ooh, a 1488 by the Mustang Funny Car, and the Chevy Silverado will stay exactly where it's at. All right, next up, we've got the Lightning Bug, which is going to take on that Chevy EV, which is in that spot right there. All right, they're on. And the Chevy EV wins the first race with a 1516. Let's swap lanes. Lanes are swapped. 1516 is time to beat. And the Lightning Bug does not do it. 1536 is not enough. All right, moving on. All right, next up, we've got the Mitsubishi Evo, a Lancer Evo, which will take on the Lightning Bug. All right, they are set. Let's see who wins it. Lightning Bug takes it 1536 to a 1542. Swap lanes. 1536 is the time to beat. And the Evo does not do it. Lightning Bug gets a little quicker, 1523, and that Evo will stay exactly where it's at. Next up, we've got the Daytona Superbird taking on the Evo. Let's do it. All right, they are set on the track. Let's see who takes the first race. 1523 by the Evo will hold off the Daytona for now. Let's swap lanes. Lanes are swapped. 1523 is time to beat. And not enough, but the Superbird does win it. It's just not enough. 1531 won't get it done. It'll stay exactly where it's at. All right, next car up is the Mazda RX-7 Drift, and it will take on that Superbird. All right, the cars are set. Let's see who takes the first race. Ooh, and the Daytona, no, the RX-7 takes it, 1534. All right, let's swap lanes, see if we can move on. Okay, the lanes are swapped to 1534. It's time to beat. And the RX-7 Drift does it, 1519 to a 1559. All right, let's now take on the Evo. All right, RX-7 now taking on the Mitsubishi Evo. 1513 to a 1522. RX-7 wins. Let's swap lanes. Lanes are swapped. 1513 is the time to beat. 1513 again. It is consistent, and we'll move past the Evo. All right, next car up. RX-7 Drift now taking on the Lightning Bug. And a 1506 to a 1507. That was a really close race. All right, let's swap lanes. All right, lanes are swapped. 1506, time to beat. And the RX-7 takes it, pulls it. 1514 to a 1531. All right, now it'll take on the Chevy Silverado. Okay, if the RX-7 can get past this car, then it will hold the top spot on this side. Let's see if it can do it. And it does it, 1518 to a 1520. All right, let's swap lanes. All right, Lanes are swapped. Let's see what he can do. Ooh, and that RX-7 drift does pass the Chevy Silverado. All right, let's see if he can get off. Let's see if he can take on the Mustang Funny Car. All right, yellow versus yellow, RX-7 versus the Mustang Funny Car. Let's see if he can do it. Ooh, Mustang Funny Car gets it with 1516 to 1529. All right, RX-7 gonna have to get a little faster. All right, lanes are set, swapped. 1516, time to beat. Ooh, and it beats the 1516, but that Mustang Funny Car did not leave room for it to pass. 1498, and that is it. All right, so the RX-7 is now in that spot, and it used to be in this spot right here. So it moved up 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, which is great. All right, so now we're gonna take this Skyline and it'll take on this Daytona Superbird. All right, Fast and Furious Skyline versus the Superbird. Let's do it. All right, a 1504 to a 1518. Very convincing win. Let's swap lanes. 1504 is the time to beat. I don't think the Superbird has it. Of course, I say that, and it beat it. It almost beat that time, too. 1507, but it's not quite enough. Skyline moves on. R33 going to take on the Evo now. 1503, it's getting faster to a 1524. Good run. All right, lanes are swapped. 1503 is the time to beat. 1500 to a 1530. All right, I may skip some cars. All right, so this is where the Skyline currently is at. We're going to move it past the Lightning Bug. We're going to go ahead and challenge this RX-7 and then the Mustang Funny Car. I don't like to skip the cars, but when they're running fast, it's obvious. There we go. That was a good race. 1511 to a 1519. Let's swap the lanes. All right, the RX-7 worked really hard to earn its spot. Let's see if we can hold it. And it does not. 1506 by the Skyline will move it on to challenge the Mustang. All right, I think the R33 is going to have to run under a 1.5 in order to knock off this Mustang Funny Car, but let's see. And it was a slower race, wow, it was a tie. 1516 to a 1516, but by 10,000th of a second, the Mustang got it. All right, let's swap lanes. All right, lanes are swapped. 1516 is the time to beat. And it does it, a 1506 to a 1518. The Mustang Funny Car, not enough. All right, the R33 will move past the Mustang Funny Car. All right, the R33 displaced that Mustang Funny Car, so now it's going to take on this Dodge Charger. Let's do it. All right, lanes are set. Let's see how far the R33 can go. 1506 to a 1527. That Charger might need to warm up. All right, let's swap lanes. All right, lanes are swapped. I warmed up the Charger a little bit, but it was not enough. 1495 by the Skyline. And yeah, it's breaking that 1.5 barrier. That Charger may be out of place, though. But it held off the Funny Car last time, so interesting. Okay, just not running well right now, but it's getting past. All right, the Cosmic Coupe is in the number 22 spot right now. Let's see if the R33 can beat it. 1515 to a 1527. Swap lanes. Okay, lanes are swapped. A 1515 is the time to beat. And a 1483 will certainly get it done. And that Cosmic Coupe just got beat bad. Whew. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, so the R33 just beat those two, and we're going to bypass this row. We're going to bypass the Nissan and the Mazda RX-8. We're going to move on to the Bugatti just to see if it's a good matchup, just to save some time. All right. I don't like skipping cars, but it is obvious it is faster than them, and who knows, the Bugatti may just take it out. or not. 1516 to a 1533. All right, let's swap lanes. 1516 is the time to beat. Lanes are swapped. 1594 to 1494 to a 1502. All right, Skyline moves past the Bugatti. Let's move on. All right, I'm going to move it 2 up. It just beat the Bugatti, so now I'm going to move it up to this, not the Datsun. Let's put it up against the Ford GT. All right, the Ford GT is in the number 12 spot. This is a big race for the R33. And a 1488 to a 1490. Very close race. It is right around this kind of level of speed. Let's swap lanes. Lanes are swapped. 1488 is what the R33 needs. And it doesn't do it. It gets stopped. So that's going to be its stopper, is that Ford GT. I'm glad I moved it up. All right, let's move it 1 car back. Okay, 1 car back is that Datsun. So let's see how it happens. That was a close race. 1496 to a 1500. Let's swap lanes. 1496 is the time to beat for that Datsun. And it does not do it. 1501 to a 1485. And the Skyline will find its place right behind that Ford GT. All right, so the Skyline ended up finding its place at number 13. It went up from number 30 to number 13, which is incredible, right in between these guys. And just remember, this particular casting is actually behind the, and I might rearrange it for the video, but it's right behind the Nissan. So it's just the only place I can fit it. All right. Okay, so now we are gonna put this Group C Fantasy on the track, and it is gonna take on the, nope, I'm sorry. We're gonna do the Roadster Bite, and it's gonna take on the Superbird. Okay. All right, Blue Roadster Bite versus the Superbird. Let's do it. 1504 to 1505. Close race. Let's swap lanes. All right, the Roadster Bite needs to beat a 1504. And it does with a 1500. All right, it'll move on. Some of these cars are kind of moody today, running sporadic times. Here we go. Ooh, and the Roadster Bite took it at the gate, at the finish line. 1514 to a 1518. All right, let's swap lanes. 1514 is the time for the Evo to beat. Ooh, and they both beat it, but the Roadster Bite gets a 1505, and it'll move on. Okay, based on those times, I would say that it is probably faster than the Lightning Bug and those 2 cars right there. We're going to put it up against the Mustang. All right, Roadster Bite versus the funny car. 1493 to a 1504. Roadster Bite has got its work cut out for it. All right, 1493, time to beat. Good race. Not enough, though. All right, the Roadster Bite will need to take on the RX-7 Drift now. All right, Roadster Bite versus the RX-7 Drift. Let's do it. Ooh, got him at the finish line. He was behind at first. 1510 to a 1512. Let's swap lanes. Lanes are swapped. RX-7 needs to beat a 1510. And it doesn't, well, it does beat a 1510, but doesn't win the race. Roadster Bite just found its place. All right, and that's where the Roadster Bite will end up. Let's see, it moved up from 20, it moved up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. So pretty impressive. And now we're gonna do that Lotus, and it'll take on the Superbird. Thank you guys for hanging in there with me. Only got a few more cars left, and we got some exciting stuff coming up, but I love doing this top 48 too. 1503 to a 1498. Those are some good times. Superbird takes it. Let's swap lanes. All right, 1493, time to beat. 1496 to a 1518. That's a really, really good time by the Lotus, but not enough to pass the Superbird, at least not on this one. I got to double check the time to make sure that was right. Okay, so that's my fault. It actually, the Lotus just beat it by 2/1000ths of a second. So yeah, 1496. The Superbird got a 1498. So the Lotus will move on. All right, Lotus Esprit versus the Mitsubishi Evo. I just said Evo. Evo. All right, 1520 to 1538. Not a fast race. All right, let's swap lanes. Lanes are swapped. 1520, time to beat. And a 1502 will get it done. Lotus is going to move on. All right, so Lotus is putting up pretty credible times. So we're going to go ahead and put it up against the Roadster Bike. Nah, let's do the RX-7 Drift. That's probably going to be a good matchup. All right, Lotus versus the Mazda. Let's see if we can get past. 1515 to a 1528. All right, let's swap lanes. All right, Lotus is in the lead right now. Here we go. And it just smoked it. 1505 to 1528. All right, let's test it against that Roadster Bike. That was not a good run by the RX-7. Let's see if the Roadster Bike can put up a better fight. And it does. Whoa, no. It does put up a better fight, but a 1493 by the Lotus will certainly get it done. All right, let's swap lanes. 1493 is the time to beat. 1494. It is awakened, that Lotus. All right, let's put it up against that funny car. All right, Lotus versus the funny car. Who you got? 1503 to a 1498. All right, let's swap lanes. Close race. Both of these cars are capable of putting up faster times, but a 1498, time to beat. And the Lotus does not get it done. It will fall short and be right behind the Mustang funny car. All right, so the Lotus ends up right behind the Mustang funny car, which is the number 26 spot, and it was down here. It moved up 8 spots, which is great. All right, now we're going to test the GMC Cyclone, and it's going to take on the Superbird. We're almost there, almost there. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 more cars to go. Okay, GMC Cyclone versus the Superbird. Let's see if it can move up. Ooh, good race, but Superbird convincing win. 1515 to 1526. Let's swap lanes. Okay, a 1515 is what the Cyclone needs to beat. And it does. Wow, got it right at the line. 1511 to a 1521. It'll move on. All right, I didn't think the Cyclone was going to move on, but it did. Let's see what it can do against the Evo. And a 1520 to a 1515. It beats the Evo. All right, let's swap lanes. Lanes are swapped. 1515 is what the Evo needs to beat. 1519 to a 1510. Cyclone doing work. All right, it'll move up. I haven't seen anything crazy, so I'm not going to skip cars yet. Here we go. Yeah, see it right there. Lightning Bug versus the Cyclone, and it got a 1511. Good race. Let's swap lanes. Okay, the Cyclone needs to beat a 1511 to move past the Lightning Bug. Not quite enough. 1514 to a 1525. All right, the Cyclone moved up 2 spots, and so now we've got the Group C Fantasy. It'll take on the Superbird. All right, Group C Fantasy. Let's see if it can do it. 1518 to a 1521. Superbird. Good race, though. Swap lanes. Thank you guys for hanging in there. We got 2 more cars after this one. Let's see if it can do it. And a 1502 will definitely do it. Group C just woke up. All right, it'll move on. All right, so since that Group C just put up a 1502, I'm going to move it like it was here. I'm going to move it up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to move it up to the Lotus and see if it can take this on. Group C Fantasy versus the Lotus Esprit. Let's see it. That was a good race. Good move. 15, 14. Got him right at the finish line. Let's swap lanes. 15, 14 is the time to beat. That was a really close race. 15:08 by the Group C Fantasy, and it will pass that Lotus. Got to put it up against that Mustang Funny Car, though. Mustang Funny Car versus Group C. Mustang Funny Car, 1510 to a 1526. Let's swap lanes. All right, the Group C needs a 1510 or better to challenge on the other side. And it doesn't quite do it. Wins the race, doesn't win best time, 1512. So it'll be right behind that Mustang Funny Car. All right, this is where the Group C Fantasy ended up, in the number 26 spot, and put that Lotus back along with the other cars. And so now I'm going to test this Acura Integra. It's going to take on the Superbird. Superbird is taking a beating. It has moved so far down. All right. All right. Acura Integra versus the Superbird. Superbird said, "I heard you. I'm not done yet." 1519 or 1535. Let's swap lanes. 1519 is the time to beat. Let's see if that Integra can do it. It can. Whoa, it did. 1507 right at the line. Sorry, Superbird. And the Integra will move on. All right, so it's actually an Acura NSX, but the Evo's going to take it on. 1520 to a 1530. Not a fast run by either, but the NSX gets it done. Swap lanes. The NSX just put up a 1520. Let's see if the Evo can hold it off. Nope, not enough. 1521 will get it done and it'll move on. Okay, the NSX going to take on the GMC Cyclone. That is what I expected to happen, but the NSX, 1510, that was good. Cyclone put up a good time, 1504. Let's swap lanes. 1504 is the time to beat. Lanes are swapped. And it was close. 1506. Not quite enough, though. Missed it by 2/1000th of a second. And that's where the NSX will stop. All right, this is where the NSX moved. It moved up 3 spots. Not bad. Beautiful paint. Hope you can see that on the camera. Beautiful car. And now I got 3 purple cars in a row. All right, last one of today is going to be the McLaren F1. And we're going to put it up against the Superbird. Let's see if the Superbird can hold off anybody from passing it. All right, Superbird trying to hold off the McLaren. Oh, and it did it. That was a fast race for these guys. 1500 to a 1505. All right, swap lanes. All right, McLaren F1 needs a 1500 or better to pass the Superbird. And wowee, Superbird had a losing streak today. 1498 by the McLaren. Really good time. All right, it'll move up. Okay, with a 1498 by that McLaren, we're going to move it up a little bit. Going to move it past this row. I'm going to put it up against, we haven't seen this EV race in a little bit. Let's put it up against the Silverado EV. Silverado EV currently in the number 30 spot. And the McLaren said, I'm taking it. 1511 to a 1520. Let's swap lanes. 1511 is the time to beat. Oh my goodness, the McLaren. 1494. Yeah, we're going to have to move it up to that funny car. All right. But the EV, 1502. I knew it could do it. Good job. Okay, the McLaren trying to get to the other side of the case. Let's see if it can dethrone this Mustang funny car. Ooh, it's going to be a tough battle. Not a good time to put up against the funny car. 1506. Let's swap lanes. Lanes are swapped. A 1506 is the time to beat. And it wins the race, but loses to the Mustang funny car by 1/1000th for the best time. So you're going to have to move it back. It'll probably challenge the Group C Fantasy. All right, McLaren F1 versus the Group C Fantasy. Both have great aerodynamics. Let's see if he can do it. 1509 or 1516. Group C Fantasy, let's swap lanes. Okay, for those of you who hung in with me Thank you for staying to this last race. I think this is going to be the last race because I think the McLaren will move past the Group C Fantasy. And it did it. It did it. Barely. That was a really fast race. 1490 to a 1490. It beats it by an unknown 10,000th of a second. All right. It'll be right behind the Mustang funny car. Wow. Good race. Good race to end on, too. Okay. So this is how it all shook out for the McLaren. It moved up from right here where this Daytona was all the way up here. So it was at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's see. That puts it at, it was at 36. It was at 36 and now it's at 26. So moved up 10 spots. That's awesome. And yeah, so next video, we're going to race the bottom 12. This would be cars, let's see, 37 through 48 right here. And I got a feeling that this he'll move up, this Dotson move up. I think he'll move up, but I could be wrong. We'll see. All right. Thank you guys for hanging in there, and I'll see you at the next recalibration video. And then after that, we've got some other cars that have been brewing and are ready to go down on the strip at Steadfast Raceway. I'll see you next time. Bye.